Welcome to Careers Unwrapped, where we delve into real-life career stories from successful people who've been through it all, the ups and the downs. We'll get their raw, honest, actionable advice and be the careers talk they wish they'd had when they started out. As someone who has had a varied career, from soldier to salesman, expedition leader to entrepreneur, he knows firsthand that your career doesn't always lead you where you expect it to. Here's your host, Mark Fawcett.
So hello and welcome to Careers Unwrapped. I'm your host, Mark Fawcett. And with me today is a guest who needs little introduction, entrepreneur, business leader, star of Dragon's Den, and also Strictly Dance performer, Deborah Meaden.
I love the Strictly Dance performer bit. That wasn't on my original career plan.
No, we won't dig into that too much, but let's see if that comes up as relevant. And we're going to discuss, hopefully, how she developed her keen knowledge of business, entrepreneurial spirit, the lessons along the way so far, and maybe some lessons that any career starter might benefit from as well. So, Deborah, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Now, you're involved in many businesses. Obviously, they're your own business, those you advise on, those you're a shareholder in. So what does a week feel like for you? What's on your to-do list for the week ahead?
Well, my weeks are pretty random because I'm involved in 21 businesses, all at different phases in their lives. And sometimes all of them need me at the same time. So I'm doing nothing but speaking to the businesses I'm involved in. And other times they're sort of getting on with life and not necessarily needing my interaction. But generally, if I think about the week ahead, I've actually just come back from holiday. Today is my first day. So literally today has been nothing but going through my emails, catching up on things and deciding when and where I can fulfill all the requests that are coming in. I will be doing a talk on business sustainability. So that's talking to a group of business people about how they can improve their sustainability. I am actually doing a photo shoot. I've written it's not a children's book. I've written a book for teenagers sort of thinking about their careers and what they want to do and how they can handle their money. And that is out in May. So I'm doing a lot of sort of promotions and publicity around that. So a pretty random week, really.
And the book is interesting. Out in May. What's the book called?
So it's called Talks Money, and it literally is me just talking about finances, careers, pensions. I know it sounds crazy to be talking about a pension when you're 15 years old, but as I explained, small amounts of money paid in early on feel a lot better than big chunks of money being paid later. So I try to turn what can sometimes feel a bit like a dry, dull subject into something that's real and meaningful to young people. And even if they don't use it today, it fills up their toolbox of knowledge so that one day later they'll think, how did I know that? So that's out in May.
And a book on that sort of subject coming from you is something that people pay attention from because your success and your public profile make you a role model to many people. And I'm interested perhaps when you were younger, who were your role models or influences when you were starting out and who did you learn from?
So that's a really interesting question because I could name 1,001 influencers, role models, and it's never, ever down to one person. And this is definitely something I've learned in life. There is a tendency for us to all to want to find one person that they look at and think, oh, I'd like to do what they've done. But nobody's got it all. And I realized really early on, and I think this has really helped me in life. I've realized really early on to pay attention, to look for the excellence all around you, because it comes from the most surprising places and it comes from the most surprising people. And if you've got your eyes open and you are interested, and being interested is such a gift. If you're really interested, then you will learn all day, every day from everyone. So I can't name you a role model because it would be a long list of people that you have never heard of. And some of them, I can't even remember their names, but I would have seen them do something brilliantly. And I would think, I need to remember that. I need to put that in my toolbox. And still now, I will bring out the knowledge that I would have learnt when I was 15, 16 years old. You know, I say to myself sometimes, how did I know that? Now, when I think hard about it, I would have seen somebody do something exceptional.
I think Also, some of the influences, you only really know how they influenced you with real hindsight. You didn't think at that moment in time, oh, I must learn from that person or that individual. Just an example, myself, I'm one of three brothers, and all of us run our own businesses. And it took me many years to realize our mother ran her own business. And so we were surrounded all the time by just conversations that were very normalized to us about somebody who was doing her own thing. So I know that's been part of how we have then grown up, but it was only really with hindsight that I got that.
Well, actually, I would agree because we had exactly the same situation. I mean, I knew I wanted my own business when I was 5 years old. I never thought I was going to work for anybody else. Why did that happen? Well, because the conversations that were taking place, the example to me, my mother didn't tell me to have my own business or how to be a businesswoman. But of course, the example to me was somebody who just got on and built their life. So I think you're right. And certainly I was unaware that I was learning, but my childhood and my sort of young adulthood mirrored yours in as much as the conversations were just taking place. And also there was an expectation of us as children. I'm one of 4 girls, and there was an expectation of us. There was no patronizing. There was no, well, you wouldn't understand. It's business. We were kind of expected to understand. And we were expected to ask questions if we didn't understand, and that is really important. Learning to be able to say, I don't really understand that. I don't really know what you're saying. That was really important too.
Must have given you a huge amount of confidence, because it's been reported in interviews you've done before as well, that you then took some very practical steps at what others might consider quite a young age. And I think you were about 19, you headed off to Italy and ultimately started a ceramic and glass import business. But how did that actually come about? Because it sounds very easy when you say it like that, but that can't have necessarily been easy at the time.
Well, I'm not sure what lessons anybody would learn from this, but I tell you the lesson to learn from it. My life felt like it wasn't doing anything. I was kind of just stagnant. And, the one thing that is true in life that we all know is if you don't change something, nothing changes. So I thought I need to change the scenery. Because just changing something generally leads to something else. And I had an ex-boyfriend who'd moved over to Italy. He was a graphic designer, actually, and his girlfriend was a fashion designer. And I said, hey, Vincent, can I come and stay? And just changing the scenery, it invigorates you. You see new things, you meet new people, you challenge yourself. And then luckily, I ran out of money. I kind of had to do something. And I saw these wonderful glass and ceramic companies and managed to convince them that I could bring their products back into the UK. And actually, a lot of credit goes to them because I was 19 years old, very, very inexperienced, and they took a punt on me. So, yeah, I think the lesson from that is if you feel stagnant, change something. Just do it.
And I think the statement you just made there, luckily I ran out of money, is not something you hear very often, but I do understand that impetus. And sometimes when it can be inside you, that external trigger, in your case, about skin, can just be the thing that tips you over the edge. But what happened with that business? How did it all pan out?
Well, that was a financial failure. So as I started bringing the goods into the UK. I did an exhibition called Top Drawer, which was an exhibition in London for very high-end products. And not everybody gets accepted. I got accepted because the products were lovely. And then the next season, I saw the products going direct into Harrods and Harvey Nichols and all the big stores. So the wonderful Italian companies I was dealing with, who took a punt on me, then decided to bypass me and sell direct. So I was furious and I had them under contract, but I realized very quickly I didn't have the resources. And that's resources in terms of cash, the mental energy, or the time to take them on. And I just thought, you know what? I have learned a huge amount. I'm a different person at the end of this experience as I was at the beginning of this experience. Take that as the thing that I've got out of this business and walk away. I had about £3,000 in debt on my credit card, and it felt like a fortune because I didn't have the money to pay it off. So I just put it down to lesson learned, and I didn't like the feeling that it failed, and I didn't want to do that again.
It's interesting you say about failure there. Both the business was a failure ultimately, but also you didn't like that feeling of failure. We know from our conversations with all sorts of career starters that is often the single biggest hurdle that stops people going out on their own is fear of failure, fear of what others will think about them. How did you ever face up to that fear of getting going, of going on your own, of taking a risk?
You will notice my language. I didn't say I was fearful of failure. I said I didn't like it. And that's two very, very different things. I'm not afraid of failure. In fact, I fail on 1,001 things. Well, 1,001 is an exaggeration, but I will fail at something most days. Something won't work out most days. It isn't the failure itself. I learned a huge amount setting up that first business. And I think when you look at most things, you can find the constructive thing in failure. And if you bother to take the time to say, why did that happen? What have I got to do differently to make sure it doesn't happen again? And actually acknowledge you shouldn't like failure. That's the point of failure is, if you get things wrong, it doesn't feel good, but you shouldn't be afraid of it. It's just, I don't really want to repeat that. So what I need to do is adjust my behavior or change my decision-making process that will help me avoid big failures. And I always say this with the businesses I'm involved in. I'm not here to stop you failing. I'm here to stop you having a catastrophic failure, because business is full of things that you achieve, that you get right, and it's full of things that you get wrong, and you could be called a failure. All you've got to do, and this is general in life, all you've got to do is get more right than you get wrong, and you're on the upside. But as I said at the start, I'm not afraid of failure. I don't like it, but I'm not afraid of it.
And what advice might you give, therefore, to those who are starting out on their journey, who maybe think, well, that's all very right, but I am afraid. I am fearful. I've got an idea. I think it might work, but I'm just a bit scared. Is there anything you would pass on to them?
Yes, try and work out what it is that's worrying you, that's scaring you. Now, there can be some perfectly legitimate things to be worried about. So say you've just started a new family, you don't have a lot of cash reserves, and you've got people that you need to take care of, then you have a different set of concerns to somebody who really is at the beginning of their career and they haven't got a huge amount to lose. So let's just go for it. So just try and work out exactly what it is that you're scared of, because actually most people have no basis for their fear. It's just fear. So if you try and work out what that is, and if you honestly can't through that process, you might find out that actually you're not really, it's just fear for the sake of fear. And if that is the case, you can rationalize your way through that. If there is a genuine reason for your fear, then work out how you can protect that area that you're worried about, and therefore remove the fear. Because, if it is that you haven't necessarily got the resources, then maybe your risk profile is a little bit different. It was fine for me. I was on my own. I didn't have children. I was able to say, do you know what? I'll do it. That's it. But had I had people dependent on me, I'd probably have had to think I need to get my finances in place before I can do this. So just spend a bit of time working out what is worrying me. What is my fear? Because often it's just fear of the unknown. And that isn't really fear. Well, it is fear, but it isn't really rational fear.
And your business involvement since then has covered many different areas: amusement arcades, bingo, retail, fashion, holidays, and many, many more. What's the common theme, the common thread through this? What are you looking for in a business of your own or a business you're going to support?
Well, the business isn't that complicated. It's not easy because it's hard work, but it is pretty simple. You've just got to know that there is a big enough market for the product or service that that you want to provide, that you can provide it at a price that enough people will pay for, therefore that will make it a market. So the market size, the real need for it, your ability to provide it at the right price. If all of those ingredients are right, then you've just got to tell your story. And I say just because that can be the hardest thing. It's a noisy place out there. There's a lot of people trying to tell their stories. So you have to know what your story is. You have to know what your reason to be is, because you're probably not the only person doing what you do. So you've got to say, why me? Why my business as opposed to so-and-so who's doing it down the road? So for me, that's the market size and understanding your story so that you are able to tell it in a compelling and engaging way that will make people think, oh, that's a bit different, or that suits me, or that sounds like my type of thing.
And in amongst that mix that you mentioned at the market, you mentioned the ability to deliver at a price, the ability to be able to tell a story. What about people, especially where you're looking at investments rather than starting up something of your own? What about the factor of the people who are running it already or who are pitching to you or talking to you? What are you looking for in the human element?
Yeah. So the people, of course, are what actually makes a business either succeed or fail, because you can have the best idea in the world. If it's being handled by the wrong people in the wrong way, it will fail. So people are absolutely fundamental. So I think their understanding, it's important to me that people can express to me their understanding of what their product is, what their market is. And I really like people who understand their strengths and weaknesses. Some people really find it difficult to say, I'm actually not very good at that. And it's really important to know what you're good at and what you're not good at. And certainly as an investor, I'm able to help. I'm able to fill in the gaps. I'm able to say, okay, well, you've got that bit. That's fantastic. Now let's support you in this. So I think that's really important. I have to trust people. I don't care how good the business is. I don't care how great a story somebody tells me. If I don't trust them and I don't believe them, I am really not interested in going into business with them, because you do business brings you into close proximity with people, and particularly in challenging times. And it's very, very important that you believe that you're all pulling in the same direction, that I have a full and honest picture so that I can help businesses. But too often businesses or somebody in a business or the CEO will hide something because they don't want to tell me that it's going wrong. And I so many times say, I just wish you had told me this a year ago. We would have shared this. I could have helped you. So honesty and trust is something that I value incredibly highly.
Yeah, I took in investors into the business I have today. I took investors into it about 15, 16 years ago. And the mistake I made at that point is I went after the money rather than the people. So I got the money very quickly and that was fine. But I realized pretty rapidly after that, I didn't do enough assessment of the people, and they were the wrong investors. They weren't bad people. They were just the wrong people for me. And so I extracted myself from that over a process of about a year and a half and bought them out. Glad I did so on all the levels. But that was a big lesson to me at that point. You can often get the money. And if you can't get the money anywhere, there's a problem maybe with you or your plan. But you've got to bring the right people with you, especially. And how do you assess that? I mean, especially, let's say Dragon's Den, okay? Because and we see the edited version, but you get a lot of these people coming in, short, rapid pitches, and you're trying to make an assessment. What are you looking for in the people there, and how are you telling the difference?
Well, to start off with, some of those pitches last 2 to 3 hours. So we see a lot more of an individual than gets shown on television. Also, we see an individual in a pretty intense environment, and that brings out all of their strengths and all of their weaknesses. Can you imagine being faced by 5 really experienced investors firing a load of questions at you? The real you is going to come out. And if it doesn't, I won't invest, because I think, blimey, if you can keep a facade up this long, you worry me. So I think we do get to grips with the real you. However, it's no different to any other business negotiation, which is you meet people, you agree to do a deal, and then you enter a phase of due diligence. So Dragon's Den, again, we make an agreement to invest in the den, and then we go out of the den and we go through the normal due diligence. So that gives you an opportunity to really get under the skin of the business, but also the people. How quickly do they respond? How honest are they? You get a real sense of the people behind the business when you've got, sometimes due diligence takes months. So for an extended period of time, you have an interaction with them. But if they don't win me in the den, so if in the den I think, not sure about you, I'm not going to invest. So they never get to due diligence. So the den does give me a good sense. Very, very rarely, and I have got it wrong, but very, very rarely have they proved to be different people outside of the den. So I think it's a rare case because obviously, as I say, it's an intense environment. People do show themselves quite quickly. And that's slightly different to the normal business day. Like when you have the opportunity of time and you can kind of make these slick pitches, which can kind of sometimes mask the real person.
Now, recent statistics are showing that the number of Gen Z, Generation Z company directors, so that's those aged about 27 or 28 or younger, has leapt by over 40% in the last year to nearly 250,000. So that is a lot of career starters becoming their own company directors. And do you have any sense of what might be driving this pretty rapid rise in younger entrepreneurs?
Well, I would say that it's the whole online space. It's where they live. They have an understanding of it in a way that I'm learning. I have to keep myself fresh and relevant and, keep thinking, oh, how's this working? What's changing? And I have to do it in a conscious way. But of course, Gen Z has grown up within this environment. So they have a huge advantage in terms of that. And actually just the type of businesses. They're very used to transacting online. They have fantastic skills and a lot of organizations who reflect my position, which is, they're happy to move from a more traditional model into a more web-based model. Then those businesses need those skills, and those skills, a lot of Gen Z can provide those in terms of project work. So not necessarily working directly for a company, but actually carrying out project work, sort of digital nomads, doing it from wherever and on a project basis. So I think it's a very exciting time for young people because they have got a lot of what traditional businesses need.
Now, one of the businesses, I believe very local to you in Somerset, that you're an investor co-owner is Fox Brothers. And are they moving much more as well into the online retail side as well? Because obviously they're involved in gorgeous clothing, natural clothing, high quality. What's happening around that business and going to online retail?
So the back end of the business. So of course, there's two bits of any business. There's the front end. And yes, we sell beautiful clothes. Actually, we're cloth makers is what we fundamentally are. So we have an online presence. So the old days used to march up and down Savile Row and show them books of cloth and say, this is our cloth. Do you want to buy some? Now everything's online. You can actually go online, look at our new collections. We offer inspiration, mood boards, so we can help people build their cloth collections. So yes, we have a very strong online presence, but of course behind that as well, to ensure that our processes are slick enough because people want to move faster now. We're fundamentally we make cloth. So we're not a fast fashion business at all, but people do expect to be able to order things quickly. They expect them to be delivered quickly. They like an awful lot more interaction. So we offer the services to say, you can actually design your own cloth. You can have these colors, do that thing. So behind the scenes as well, we have certainly embraced all of the technological advancements that we can, but we are fundamentally weaving cloth. So it's an interesting one. It's where tradition marries the future and finding out the bits that are generally enhancing what our customers love about us. And what our customers love about us is a very, very high quality, slow fashion product. But we can use technology to help us deliver it in a modern way.
And linked to changing over time and thinking about your own experiences, what is most different from, let's say, Deborah version 1, 19 years old, Italy, and Deborah today? What have been the biggest changes, think, in yourself over that time?
Oh, that's interesting, actually. I think I'm pretty bullish. I'm pretty upfront. I'm pretty full on. And when I was younger, I didn't temper that at all. Now I understand that not everybody is like that. And if I want to get the best from people, I need to find the way of bringing their best out. And I do want the best from people. And I probably, when I was younger, lost good people simply because they didn't thrive in such a bullish environment. So I have definitely learned that. And that's to my shame, really. Although I'm pleased that I understand that in a different way. So I think I work much harder at understanding how to get the best from people than I used to, because it's a bit like, well, if you're not like me and you don't want to do it my way, then so be it. And I'm a very different person now.
I think that sounds so familiar to me. When I was first made managing director of a business, and so I'd been in the army for a number of years and joined this business World Challenge when it was quite small, became much bigger. I became the MD there. And I thought as soon as I became MD that have eyes over everything, be in control of everything. Everyone had to be doing as I said. And it pretty much broke me and certainly harmed some people in it. And forced me to learn to go, actually, no, my role here is to lead people and not to just manage every little detail of their lives. And that really helped me for the future. So again, I think, one of the main learning points I've had over time is people, basically, and what to do in and around that. And I think the other one for me personally is I've learned to be a lot more relaxed, that things are probably going to be all right as long as you come up with a plan and you do it. And having been through recessions, COVID, so many other things, somebody resigns, you think the business will fail, it doesn't. Just go, there's not that many things that are really going to phase me now. And with your 21 businesses that you're involved in now, let alone the ones you've been through in the past, do you also have a lot of a sense of, I'm going to be able to come up with a solution?
Yes, that is so true, Mark. Because business might look different or sound different. The widgets might be different or the service might look different. But actually, fundamentally, most of the mechanics of business looks very, very similar. And you must feel it sometimes. I see where this is going. Hopefully I can help steer away from it. But if somebody phones me and they're, usually they're at the, oh no, we're all, it's all going to fail. It's all going to be terrible. And my first thought is, of course it isn't. Let's just be logical. Let's just sit down and work this out. And you're absolutely right. There's generally a solution to most things. I don't remember a time. Well, I haven't had a business failure based on the fact that we've been presented with a massive problem and we couldn't overcome it. There is always a solution, and it might 100% work. It might 50% work, but it helps you move forward. And that is so, so true.
And now we're going to try and see if we can bottle up this huge amount of experience you've got. And I'm imagining now perhaps you're speaking to an audience of, or a room full of people, let's say, who are in their early 20s thinking, I want to go and set up my own business. If you could say to them, look, these are 3 things, and they don't have to be the most important 3 things. They just have to be 3 really useful things. If you could say, just consider these 3 things, what might they be?
So apart from the things that I started off talking about, which is, is it fundamentally a business? Is there a market? Are there enough people? Can you provide it? All of those things. I would say that seek advice, but know when to make your own decision. I watch too many people keep asking more and more and more questions and more people. And I get a sense that they're actually delaying the moment which they actually get on and do it. So I think it's very important. Listen, seek advice, but remember it's your business. And if you're talking to advisors, they are just that. They are advisors. They're not making your decisions for you. You make your own decisions and you stand by your own decisions. So I think that's a very key thing that I have learned. I used to think everybody knew more than me about it. I'd walk into a room full of people in their lovely suits and their big spreadsheets, and I learned very quickly it's my business. I care about it a lot more than they do. So thanks for your advice, and I will listen and I will act on it. So I think that's very important. I think that keeping your head up, because the world is moving at an ever faster pace, which means that although your customers probably want the same sort of thing from your business, then their language might change and they might want it delivered in a different way. So you've got to keep yourself fresh. You've got to constantly be looking up. And it's very easy when everybody's having a success, things are going immensely well, to take your foot off the accelerator and think, that's it. We've got it. Now we've nailed it. Because next year, that thing that you thought you'd nailed, it will be out of date or out of fashion, or your language will be wrong, or it will feel stale. So always, never rest on your laurels. Always be looking forward and thinking, so how do I speak? How do I keep this fresh? What new developments can I make to this to make sure that our customers are still carry on being engaged? And never forget why your customers love you. I'd write that down. What is it about us that our customers love? Because sometimes in developing new ideas and new products, you can spin away from the core of why your customer loves you. So write that down really early on. I actually do something with all of my businesses. I say, right, take a piece of A4 paper and I want you to describe exactly who your customer is, where they live, where they work, have they got children or not, how do they dress, what do they look like. Put a picture up and keep that on the wall. And every time you make a decision, look at big decision, obviously not every single day, but big decisions. Look at your customer and think, does that fit that person? And also look at that customer and say, how have they changed? Have they grown up? Are they wearing different things? Are they looking different? But I actually ask my businesses, and I'll go into them and I'll say, go on, let's see your customer. And I would expect them to be able to explain exactly who they are and show me this piece of paper that's got an outline of who their customer is.
I now have a mental image of some of your businesses knowing you're on a visiting day and they're going, where's the customer picture? Correct. But importantly, what you're saying there, especially for founders and businesses coming sort of out of, let's say, a startup phase into a maturity phase, is that the risk of constantly looking inward at the business and not looking outward at the market and the customer and keeping that focus on those areas as well. Just in terms of one final topic, leadership as opposed to management. Do you have any thoughts with your experience of both your own work, but also the people you've worked with? Are there any difference between leadership in a business context and management in a business context?
Absolutely. And I actually think it's one of the hardest things I found was to move out of managing a business into the leadership of a really good team of people. So you described it. When your early days of being a CEO, you feel like you have to know everything, do everything, be involved in every decision. And actually, leadership is very different to that. It's inspiring. It's making sure that everybody understands where we're going and inspiring people into being the best people that they possibly can, and making sure you're the glue of a business so that whilst you have a lot of hopefully entrepreneurial people working within an organization, the great side of that is that there'll be lots of energy, there'll be lots of new ideas, lots of great creativity. But the leader's job is to make sure that those actually form a coherent business so that instead of everybody doing their own thing, everybody understands the framework within which they're working and in which they should create their offerings for the consumer. So it is a very different thing. And actually, it's a dangerous thing, I think, for leaders to keep dipping into management, because the worst kind of leaders are the ones that sort of swoop in. They call them the seagulls, don't they? We kind of swoop in and spuddle things around a bit and then disappear off again. That's the worst kind of leadership. So I think they're very different things, and they're very difficult to cross the floor from being a manager to being a pure leader. And also there's the middle bit where you're not a huge organization, where actually being a CEO, you are absolutely offering the leadership. So you are involved in some of the day-to-day management and you're offering the leadership roles. But I think you have to be clear when you're doing that. There's moments to say, right, let's everybody get in a room and let's make sure we all understand the vision. Let's explore where this business can go and what it can do versus right, let's fix this problem.
Yeah. And as a complete aside to that, and from your appearance on Strictly, was your professional dancer, Robin, more of a leader or a manager?
Well, in dance terms, he was a leader. So that's a really hard one to say, because I think that felt quite different to business. He was my teacher. And I guess leaders can be teachers. Well, they often are teachers, but there are also times when they're instructing. Robin was instructing me. You do this, you do that, you do the other, and that happens. And that's more management. So I think it's a bit that I described as often there's that dual role. And I think Robin had that dual role.
Deborah, this has been brilliant. I could go on and on because there's so much to just unpick from the vast amount of experience you've gained. But some of the highlights from me in the early years about being interested, asking questions, paying attention, looking for excellence in both activities, in people and in organizations around you. And that's sort of constant learning. Also about not being afraid. And if you are trying to work out what it is that's causing the fear, so you can tackle that thing. You've given advice in here about making sure you're really examining whether your idea actually is a business, about how to seek advice, but also to make the decision, because you just can't go on forever and ever being advised. If you're going to set it up, if you're going to be the lead, you're going to have to decide. And also very much in there about keeping things fresh, both individually and as a business as well. So anybody who's about to or who is taking those first steps, I think there is just so much to take away from there. So thank you so much. And with one final question, actually, which is, it's something we do on Careers Unwrapped about passing on the baton of careers experience. And if there was perhaps one other person who you think we should get on, it doesn't have to come from your background at all, but somebody whose story, whose career learnings, career journey would be really useful and interesting to other career starters, who do you think we should get on the show?
Oh gosh, there's 1,001 people, but I would say the brilliant Sarah Willingham, who was at a very, very early age over in Japan setting up a pizza chain. Very interesting.
Sarah Willingham. Brilliant. Well, we will reach out to her. Deborah, thank you so much for coming on to Careers Unwrapped, for sharing your journey, the learnings you've had through it, and hopefully inspiring the next young entrepreneur generation as they get going too.
Well, I look forward to seeing them in the den then.
Brilliant. Deborah, thank you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it. Thanks, Mark.
This podcast is sponsored by We Are Futures. To find out more about We Are Futures and how we can introduce your brand, business, or organisation to the mass markets of tomorrow, visit www.wearefutures.com. Make sure to search for Careers Unwrapped in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Remember to click subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at We Are Futures, thanks for listening.